Rain hit the metal like angry fingers drumming on a dying world. Smoke filled the air. Blades clashed in the distance. On the edge of the ruined city, a human soldier named Jace took cover behind a fallen wall. He was bleeding from the shoulder. But he didn't care. What he had seen made no sense. The enemy wasn't shooting anymore. The battlefield had gone strangely quiet. Even the alien warriors who had once charged with fury now stood in silence. Their glowing eyes watched him with something between fear and respect, all because of the blade in his hand. Jace didn't know the weapon was sacred. He didn't know the curved blade with glowing runes belonged to the highborn daughter of the Kha'tali clan, a warrior race feared across half the galaxy. He only picked it up because his rifle had jammed, and the blade was lying beside the body of a fallen alien knight. Now, that mistake was about to change his life. 2 hours earlier, he had been dropped into the war zone with orders to assist the retreat. He wasn't a hero, just a backup. But when his team got wiped out by a surprise ambush, he was the only one left. That's when he saw the glowing blade and made the desperate choice to fight back with it. He didn't know that touching that weapon without permission was equal to declaring a duel, and surviving the battle with it? That was marriage in there. Culture. As he stood panting, still gripping the sword, a figure stepped from the smoke. She moved like liquid fire. Her armor was black with violet patterns. Her blue hair floated behind her like a living banner. Her eyes, glowing violet, locked onto the blade in his hand. "You carry my vow," she said, voice calm but deadly. "Do you even know what you've done?" Jace blinked. He thought she was here to fight. He raised the blade in defense. She didn't strike. Instead, she reached forward and touched the edge of the blade, then her own chest. Witnesses around them dropped their weapons. The alien soldiers bowed their heads. The battle was over, not by surrender, but by something far more confusing to the human side. She turned to her warriors and spoke in a language he didn't understand. But from their reaction, it was clear she had made a choice. When she turned back to him, her expression was unreadable. "You fought with honor," she said, "with my blade. That makes you my bonded. My husband, by law of our people." Jace felt his legs go numb. "What? Come with me," she said. "Before your commanders try to claim you as a weapon." He didn't move, not out of fear, but out of complete shock. He had just tried to survive. He had no idea that one swing of a sword would bind him to an alien warrior, end a war, and change the balance of power in the galaxy. And yet, she was already walking away. Without looking back, the blade still hummed in his hand, and behind him, the battlefield no longer felt like a war zone. It felt like a stage where something ancient had been written in blood and flame. Jace followed the alien warrior through the broken remains of the battlefield. His boots crunched against metal shards and scorched earth. The air was heavy with smoke, but no one stopped them, not the alien soldiers, not the human scouts watching from the cliffs above. Everyone just stared. She didn't say a word until they reached the edge of the Kha'tali dropship. Its door opened with a deep hiss. Jace hesitated. This wasn't part of any plan. He was walking into the enemy's ship, unarmed except for the blade that had accidentally made him her husband. "You still carry it," she said without turning around. He looked at the sword. He wanted to drop it, but somehow his fingers wouldn't. "Let go. What happens if I give it back?" he asked. She turned her head slightly. "Then you break the vow. That is a grave insult among my kind, and I will have to fight you to the death." Jace swallowed hard. Inside the ship, the walls glowed with pale blue lights. The crew members stiffened as they saw her. They bowed their heads with respect, but their eyes moved to Jace with confusion and caution. He was an outsider, a human, and yet he held the sacred blade. "He's the one?" a voice said sharply. Another female stepped forward, taller, older. Her armor was silver and carried more scars. Her eyes were the same glowing violet, but colder. She walked straight up to Jace and looked him up and down. "This is the male you choose?" "He chose me," the blue-haired warrior replied. "He took my blade and fought with it. He survived." Jace shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't know. I just needed a weapon." The older one gave a dry laugh. "And now you are bound by one. Our customs are ancient, sacred." You wielded her oath blade. "You survived the trial. The war is over. A bond has been made." Jace stared at them both. "I'm just a soldier. I didn't come here to get married. Intent does not matter. Deed does," the elder said firmly. The younger warrior looked at him again. "You still have a choice. But know this, if you stay, my clan will protect you. You will become part of us. But if you reject the bond, others will challenge you. They will see your refusal as cowardice, as betrayal." He looked around. Every Kha'tali in the ship was now staring at him, watching his reaction, testing his courage. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. She blinked once. "Kaelari." "Kaelari," he repeated. "And I'm Jace. I don't know your ways, but I'm not afraid. If this bond means peace between our kinds, maybe it's not such a bad thing." Kaelari studied him for a moment, then gave a slight nod. The elder warrior stepped aside. "Then come. There is still the rite of flames. The union must be witnessed by the clan. If he passes, he stays. If not, the bond breaks and he dies." Jace raised his eyebrows. "No pressure, huh?" Kaelari gave a rare smile. "Our weddings are not soft things. We are warriors. Our vows are earned in fire." He stepped beside her, still gripping the blade. The air felt heavier now, not with fear, but with the weight of something ancient and powerful. A ritual he did not understand, but could not walk away from. Behind them, the ship lifted off. The humans below vanished from view. Ahead, Jace would face a challenge no weapon could win alone. But Kaelari was beside him, and her people were watching. The dropship descended into a deep canyon surrounded by glowing cliffs. Bioluminescent vines clung to the rocks, pulsing softly. In the dark, as the doors opened, heat rolled inside like a wave. Jace stepped out, sword still in hand, sweat already forming on his brow. The Kha'tali warriors stood in formation. Rows of them in dark armor, their glowing eyes fixed on the outsider. In the center stood a wide stone circle, carved with ancient runes. Fire pits surrounded it. In the middle of the circle was a raised platform with 3 wide steps leading up. Kaelari led him to the base of the steps. She looked calm, but there was something in her posture, a silent tension even her perfect balance couldn't hide. "You must climb alone," she said. Jace looked up. "What happens up there?" "You will face your trial. Fire will test your resolve. Truth will test your words. You must speak your vow in front of the clan. If you lie, the flames will know. If you speak truth, they will burn clean. And if I pass?" he asked. "Then you are truly one of us. And the bond is sealed." Jace took a deep breath. He had faced enemy fire, watched comrades die, and crossed dead worlds. But nothing had prepared him for this. Still, he climbed. The heat intensified as he stepped into the ring. From below, every Kha'tali warrior watched in silence. Kaelari stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. Jace stood at the center, sword raised above the flames. A low voice echoed from somewhere in the canyon. The voice of the clan. "Judge, speak your vow, human. Speak what brought you to our daughter's blade." Jace's voice was steady. "I didn't come seeking marriage, I came to survive. I fought with her blade not to claim it, but because it was there. When I held it, I felt like I had to protect something. I didn't know what it meant, but now I do. I will not run. I will not reject this." I vow to stand with Kaelari and with her people if they'll have me. The flames burst higher. The platform glowed red, but Jace did not flinch. He stood firm. The sword shimmered in his hand like it understood his words. The judge spoke again. Let the fire judge his heart. One of the flames curled toward him like a living serpent. It wrapped around his chest. It did not burn him. Instead, it glowed brighter as if embracing his words. The heat faded. The runes on the platform pulsed once, then went still. The warriors below gave a single sharp strike of their fists to their chests. A salute. Kaelari walked up the steps. She stood across from him. Her voice was softer now. The fire accepted. You, so will I. He lowered the sword. So we're married now? In the eyes of my people, yes. She extended her hand. He took it. A wave of sound rose from the canyon. Not cheers, not noise. A deep hum of approval. Of tradition fulfilled. Of something sacred renewed. Kaelari looked into his eyes. Now we go before the High Matron. And then, the real trials begin. Jace raised an eyebrow. That wasn't it. Her expression barely changed. No, that was the easy part. The flames behind them slowly faded into glowing embers. But something new had been lit inside Jace. A fire not of fear, but of purpose. And Kaelari didn't let go of his hand. The High Matron's chamber sat at the peak of a jagged mountain where clouds scraped the rocks. The journey upward was made on foot. No ships, no machines. Only those with honor were allowed to walk the sacred path. Jace followed Kaelari along. A narrow ridge. Wind roared around them, but she moved without fear. Her balance was perfect. He watched her steps and mimicked them carefully. One wrong move and he would fall into the fog below. He was sweating and sore by the time they reached the summit. Kaelari hadn't even broken a breath. 2 guards stood at the gate, tall and armored in silver. They stepped aside without a word. As Kaelari approached, inside the chamber was dim but warm. Crystals glowed from the walls. In the center sat the High Matron. She was older than any Kha'tali Jace had seen. Her hair was silver white, braided in long cords. Her armor was ceremonial, made of scaled metal and ancient cloth. Her eyes were the same glowing violet as Kaelari's, but they held centuries of weight. So, she said slowly, this is the male who touched the vowblade. Kaelari knelt without hesitation. Jace followed her lead, one knee down, head lowered. Matron rose and walked around him. She didn't speak for several moments. Her silence felt heavier than the mountain air. You speak our vow, she said at last. You walk the flame. But you are still human, still soft. My daughter may accept you, but I do not. Jace looked up. Then why bring me here? To test you, in mind, in strength, in loyalty. We are not bound by feelings. We are bound by fire and blade. You will train with our warriors. You will be tested. If you fall short, the bond breaks and she returns to the clan. Kaelari's voice was calm. He won't fail. The matron raised one eyebrow. You trust him so easily? Kaelari stood. No, but I saw the way he stood in fire. And fire does not lie. The matron nodded once. Very well. The trial of scales begins at first light. If he survives, I will accept the bond. If he does not, you will return unbound. Jace felt a chill down his spine. What is the trial of scales? A test that breaks warriors or remakes them. You'll know when it begins. He didn't sleep that night. They gave him a chamber carved into stone, with only a bedroll and a cup of water. Kaelari visited briefly. She didn't speak much, only sat beside him and placed her hand over his. You don't have to prove anything to them. You already proved it to me. He squeezed her fingers gently, but deep inside, he knew the matron's words mattered. If he was to stay, if he was to be her equal, he had to stand not just as her husband, but as your clan's warrior. At dawn, horns echoed across the peaks. The trial of scales had begun, and Jace was ready. Asterisk. The sun rose like a blade of fire slicing through the morning mist. The air was thin at this height, but the arena carved into the mountain stone was already filled with armored Kha'tali. They gathered silently around the circle of judgment. No cheers, no smiles. Only eyes that waited to see if the human would fall. Jace stood at the edge of the arena, stripped of all weapons. Only the clan's crest was painted on his bare chest. Beside him stood a towering Kha'tali warrior named Threk, muscles like stone. A scar across one eye. Threk had trained generations of warriors. Today he would test Jace. "This is not a fight," Threk said. "This is a measure of your soul." Jace nodded once. He didn't speak. He knew words wouldn't help here. The horn sounded. Threk lunged. Jace dodged the first strike, but the second hit his ribs like a hammer. He rolled across the stone, gasping. The crowd didn't react. They only watched. Threk didn't stop. He moved like a storm, testing Jace's every weakness. Strength, speed, pain. Jace blocked what he could. Took the hits he couldn't. He got back up every time. Hours passed. Blood stained the stone. Jace's vision blurred. But he never stopped. Moving. Every time he rose, he heard Kaelari's voice in his head. "You already proved it to me." He stood again, arms shaking. Threk paused. For the first time, the old warrior tilted his head. "You do not break." Jace wiped blood from his mouth. "Not today." Threk raised a fist and slammed it to his chest. The signal of respect. The crowd did the same. One by one, the warriors who had doubted now saluted. Even those who whispered behind Kaelari's back now looked at Jace with something new in their eyes. He had earned their respect through pain. Later, as healers wrapped his wounds, Kaelari knelt beside him. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder. "You passed. Even Threk saluted you." No outsider ever earned that before. Jace gave a tired smile. "I think he broke 3 of my ribs." She smiled back, eyes soft. "Then you're ready for the last step, the binding ceremony. After that, no one can question the bond." Jace leaned back, letting the mountain winds cool his burning skin. He had fought battles before. But this was different. This was a test of belonging. And he had made it. The matron watched from the cliffs above, arms folded. She said nothing, but her face showed no more doubt. Kaelari stood and offered him her hand. "Come, let the stars witness what fire has begun." He took her hand without hesitation. Together, they walked toward the sacred peak where vows were carved into stone and whispered to the sky. Asterisk. The peak was silent, untouched by war or time. Stone spires rose into the sky like frozen flames. The wind carried only the sounds of chanting. Deep, rhythmic, ancient. Every warrior of the Kha'tali clan stood in a circle, armor gleaming beneath the starlight. At the center stood Jace and Kaelari. Between them floated the vowblade. It hovered with a soft glow, spinning slowly as if listening. The matron stood beside the sacred stone altar, holding a flame carved from crystal. She lifted it high. "Let the fire of our ancestors bear witness," she said. Kaelari stepped forward. Her voice was steady and strong. "I, Kaelari of the Flameburn line, daughter of battle and blade, accept this warrior as my bonded. Not by blood, not by fate, but by fire." Jace followed her step. "I am Jace, son of Earth. I didn't come here to conquer or claim, but I stood beside her, fought with her blade. And I offer myself in truth and loyalty." The vowblade pulsed. Once, then again. A bright ring of light spread from its core, bathing the two in warmth. The matron nodded. "The bond is sealed. You are no longer outsider. You are clan." A cheer erupted across the peak. Not loud, but powerful. The kind of sound that shook hearts, not just ears. Warriors raised their fists, elders bowed their heads. Even the winds seemed to pause. Kaelari turned to Jace and extended her hand. "Now you are mine, and I am yours." He took her hand and stepped forward. "So what happens now?" She smirked softly. "Now we return home and show the galaxy what this bond truly means." Behind them, the vowblade settled gently onto the altar, its light fading into stillness. Above, stars stretched across the night like watchful eyes, witnesses to a union no one had expected. A human and a Kha'tali, bound by battle, forged in fire, carved into legend. The clan began their descent from the mountain. But Kaelari and Jace remained for one more moment, not as warrior and outsider, but as equals. The peace didn't last long. Only 3 suns after the binding ceremony, a message arrived from orbit. The Kha'tali's ancient enemy, the Verkal, had broken their ceasefire. One of their fleets was en route to the mountain clans. Their target was clear, the peak where the union had been forged. The clan gathered in the stone hall, where warriors stood ready and elders whispered among themselves. Jace stood beside Kaelari, now dressed in ceremonial armor marked with her clan's crest. His own armor bore the same symbol, newly painted by her hand. The matron raised her staff and silenced the room. "The Verkal seek to break our unity. They fear what this bond represents. A union between species, between bloodlines, between futures." She turned to Jace. "This is your final test. Not of blade or fire, but of heart. Will you stand with us now that war has returned?" Jace stepped forward without hesitation. "I stood beside Kaelari when I didn't know what her blade meant. I will stand beside her now, knowing exactly what it does." Kaelari said nothing, but her eyes burned with pride. That night, the clan prepared defenses. Shields were raised, weapons charged. Scouts reported Verkal ships entering the atmosphere. The storm was coming fast. Jace didn't sleep. He stood beside the cliff's edge, watching the stars fall. Not like light, like threats. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a symbol now. A bridge between worlds. Kaelari joined him silently. She didn't speak, just took his hand and stood with him. When the Verkal landed, they expected resistance. What they didn't expect was unity. Human and Kha'tali warriors fought side by side. Jace led a forward line with Kaelari at his flank. The vowblade shone in his grip like a torch through shadow. The battle was brutal. Fire lit the sky, but neither side gave in. Jace was wounded, but refused to fall. He protected a young Kha'tali scout from a plasma bolt, carried a fallen elder to safety, fought until his armor cracked and blood soaked his chest. But the bond held. Kaelari fought beside him like fire given form. When the Verkal commander tried to strike Jace down, it was Kaelari's blade that stopped the fatal blow, and Jace's arm that drove the final strike. The Verkal retreated by nightfall. The mountain still stood. The clan gathered again, this time not in ceremony, but in honor. The matron spoke over the gathered fires. "Let it be known across the stars, a human came to us with no name. He took a sacred blade without knowing, and by his courage gave it meaning." Kaelari stood beside him, armor cracked, hair wild, eyes bright. "I chose him," she said. "But he proved to everyone that the bond chose us both." Jace didn't speak. He only took her hand. The fires burned into the sky. Peace would not last forever. Wars would return. But something stronger had been forged than any weapon, a future, shared together, forever.